you remember that day? It seems I spoke too vaguely. Allow me to clarify. Do you remember that day when the streets were clogged with cars at high noon, yet devoid of the drivers who used them? Do you remember the numbers, the press releases, the amount of food left in your fridge? Or perhaps, to you, that is not that day. Let me try again. Do you remember that day when the sky was covered in smoke, clouds of ash shrouding a blood-red sun? Do you remember the text messages, the announcements, the lists of shelters and supplies? Perhaps that, too, may be wrong. So I ask you this. Do you remember that day? Do you remember what you saw, what you heard, what you tasted and smelled instead? Is it branded in your mind, too brightly to ever ignore? I know it is. I can feel the images emanating from you like black body radiation, your pain permeating the air like pheromones. Good. Let's move on. Do you remember elementary school? When the world was tall and large and filled with shifting shadows, not because something was there, but because nothing was? Do you remember the toys, the playdates, the endless possibilities in the air? Of course you do. But do you recall the time in 3rd grade when you felt fear? You're silent. Do you not remember? Are the words dying not on your lips, but in your deepest consciousness? Are you realizing that memories break as easily as statues in dams and houses? The world must feel unstable, made of spider webs and funhouse mirrors. But think of the oldest words you've ever read. Do you remember those diaries of the departed, fantasies from the forgotten, legends by the long gone? Their writers are dead, but their words and memories are more alive than you or I will ever be. So I ask you, one final time, do you remember that day? Tell me about it. I am listening and I am writing your words down. And as long as we have words, our memories will never die.
Or, the name of this poem is June 9th, 2020. I don't bother to name what I know will never be repeated out loud. I am sitting in the passenger seat of my mother's car and a funeral service is blaring over the radio. She looks in her rearview mirror and tells me, Al Sharpton almost came to my cousin's funeral. With his memorial hair James Brown-esque over his sweaty forehead and all of the yelling in the cameras and the speakers crack up oxygen molecules into suspended static, or the name of this poem is Everywhere is Ferguson. My sister tells me a girl at her school ran over protesters the other day. Thin hands drumming a bullhorn on the steering wheel, and I tell her to mind the speed limit, humming a Weeping Mary in my throat, the same rhythm as my grandmother during aftermaths. You can make anything into a song if you try hard enough. White gloves pinging dollar bills into silver bowls, and highways freckled with freeway flowers, and cocking glove compartments, and every mama's worst fear, or everywhere is Ferguson. I see fires and trash cans and cars turned over, stereos tumbling out funk, hip-hop a hurricane in the streets. I name each beat after that time we went driving after my sister's senior prom. 3 black kids at 3 a.m. in all devil's hour thought ourselves Icarus flying too close to the sun of the 7-Eleven's neon glow, but screamed rap lyrics anyway after the electric joy and 4-inch heeled rebellion dripping in red icy. And after the missing seatbelts that could mean unfortunate accident for all the wrong reasons, and the white man in a Jeep with a phone in his hand. Or the name of this poem is June 9th, 2020. My mama turns down the radio and suddenly breath exists again. I hear river rock and marmalade in her mouth. She turns to me and says, "No more radio funerals."
It starts in the diaphragm, low and hostile and pulsing to a symmetrical beat. We breathe as deep as the Mariana Trench with a slow inhale. The split sound of a rippling cymbal sends human bodies into waves. They crash, ringing doorbells, plucking vocal cords, chanting verses, all to create a choir. What comes from curving lips is the culmination of a million voices. We sing and sculpt sound, project ideas to the world, participate in a back and forth exchange. The choir multiplies. At times, it's difficult to decipher consonance from dissonance. Either way, we shake with energy, atoms of buzzing ambition and incentive. Our lungs continue to rise and sink with cyclic breaths. Tongues sit in the mouth, molded to our own likings, the tools of our artistry. And so we build statues of ideas, pile cadavers on top of one another, each being belting with thundering vibrato. Our voices crease the earth, tectonic plates shift and scrape the sides, hands reach for clumps of clay to convolute beings of burning definition. Before us are the results of our words, clicking teeth a percussive muse, the metronome to our action. Some find it irritating. Our rallies are the canker sore in a country's mouth, and every cry is a tender push for progress. We are the voices inside voices inside voices. Behind it all is the constant thumping of motive.
When I was younger, I believed it was impossible to die if you had plans for the future. The further your plans, the longer you would live. I kept a diary with a little silver lock. It was blue, decorated with fairies, flowers, and long green vines. I kept the key in the top drawer of my nightstand. By the second grade, I had written down my plans all through college, decided by then I would know what would come next. I used to have a bunk bed that I did not share. Slept on the bottom bunk and placed my pillow right against the ladder. At night, my wrist found its way between metal and fluff until my fingers tingled. Figured if someone were to try to take me, I'd be able to grab the ladder first. I hang out with the neighbor's kid until the sun goes down. The street lamp in front of my house flickers. I ask her mom to walk me home. I'm 17. There's no lights in the parking lot. I walk with open ears and keys shoved between my knuckles, peek through my car windows, check the trunk and back seat before getting in. I take 2 left turns, a sudden right with no blinker. I turn around in the cul-de-sac. I'm not followed. A man approaches me. I square my shoulders, keep my stance wide, look between him and his friend. He asks me, "Do you have any masks inside?" I remind myself I'm still in uniform. A girl walks through a mall on her own. 2 men trail behind her. She approaches a group of teens about her age, asks them, "Please, won't you walk me to my car?" She goes to the gym. Notices a phone camera out of the corner of her eye, a man coming closer, asking, insisting for her number. A girl she doesn't know approaches, says, "Hey, are you ready to go?" She was only 20 when she met a man on Tinder. They met at a diner. She said she only had to walk 15 minutes to get there. He says, "Good. I don't date anyone who lives more than a mile away." He offers to walk her home. She says no. He follows anyway. She walks into an apartment building, asks the doorman, "Please, won't you pretend I live here?" Who could have expected this? Manifested this? I've switched to permanent ink and taken what if out of my vernacular. My journal is in past tense and 5 senses. My plans are only for the weekend. I'm focused on not forgetting. My only worry is that the paper will be too thin to carry the weight. But who do I silence? Me now? Or them later? How do I decide?
On the cleaned, sanitized treadmill, I put my feet on either side of the belt and watch it move, 8 miles per hour beneath me. I wipe down the machinery with a Clorox wipe. I wipe down the LED screen. I position myself where I'll gain maximum exposure to UV, to the sun's irradiating gaze. The day balances on a petri dish. I look at the Crunch Fitness receptionist. I tell her I am building a house around my thoughts. Each time I feel I am misunderstood, I add a new brick to the structure. So far, I've accumulated enough bricks for a wall. She tells me that the capital M man is enacting a series of mandates in which this architecture is necessary, compulsory even. The same walls but rebuilt, heightened, then made useful again. The treadmill's belt just moves beneath me. On the LED screen, a video of a dolphin caged in an abandoned swimming pool. A body so slender it could be a minnow, or a silverfish. This is going to end in thrashing. This is going to end in blood. The dolphin slams its body over and over again against the concrete wall, and I imagine slamming myself against my own mind architecture, that insurmountable boundary which hides everything within its skeleton and shows none of its cards. My fingertips grasp the treadmill's handrails. No one is here. I move into my house, which is now heavy with bricks. The house keeps transforming. It is armor, shelter, solitude. My body bitten into barred windows and chain link. My breath held in silent prayer. The rasp at the back of my throat. What a pitiful scene. I get on my knees and scrub so hard at the floorboards. I think I might wash America clean.
A Homo sapien construct eclipses the sun. A face that is hard to make out, devoid of eyes and real features, an idea with a mouth gaping at the city below, sunlight attempting to shine through. It's made up of the worst parts of us, with no hands and no body, it doesn't listen or talk. Strung up like a dead man, alone in the sky, an empty husk blotting the sun. Beneath, I'm a tightrope walker, miles above the ground, uneasy as I move from my suburban roof towards any idea of a civilization. Empires are ants under my feet, with empty alleyways. From my position, the way down is long. Cities used to look like the imprint of dancing and faith, though if I stare close enough, my eyes can imagine bodies and shadows moving in some stranger motion. Heads tilted up, they each hold the other, swaying arm in arm. They looked at what used to be the sun. These are the masses that occupy, unsteady and suspicious of a face that lacks what is natural to a human. No empathy, no song, no heat. It is not mad or proud, it only has a hung-open mouth and eyes that drop. The people are disgruntled, moving amongst themselves. I above can only muster pity. Side to side they stagger, and with an unsteady back, I try to hold myself up. How long I will stay, how long will it hang there? Shadows do not leave this city, locked in by the buildings and an empty expression. Paralyzed together, we hold each other in a breath.
The winters down here are swollen with 2 terabytes of memory. Genealogical. We don't have that word in our language, but the closest translation is disarmament and a dryer sheet in the bed. We know only how to prepare end-time meals, repentant steaks and Thanatos dinner rolls. We can each take one dainty bite and listen to each other's digestion. Sonar Epicureans, sloughing dead skin, and a fine layer of grief on the table. Feet in shoes and get groceries and serve them like it's blue stamped on the packet. Disarmament for the galvanism in our bodies, supposedly. At the Armageddon picnic, everyone receives a serviette of nitrogen and glow sticks to place at their feet. Notice how we have reached our word count. There's no summative statement or new construction jobs, only a heart the size of a fist and poster board scabs. A telegram to the New Year's god of plenty gets delayed. We resolve to be the creation myth, again. How will I explain my father to my nieces? How will I explain the sidewalk to my neighbors? The seconds to midnight announce themselves in orderly lines. It may be inedible, but it's something to put on the table. At the Armageddon luncheon, we strap on wingtips and flared heels to dance each other out. Nothing left to do but step 2-3, partners on partners until we've reassembled the sea.
Backstage. Your hands fit into the fractures down the center of your bathroom mirror. Those same shards you traced your fingers down upon every time you realize what you've done is now irreversible. knees on the vinyl, bony caps splintering and splitting by the dozen. And before it, 1,000 glittering shards of glass. We are dancers, you and I, on a stage of fragmented bodies and their shells. We totter on the balls of our feet among glass skulls, just barely keeping up with the push and pull of yearning, mouths unlatched but tongues paralyzed by lightning. We hold our words back. We hold our words back for fear of the audience on the other side of the curtain. The limelight follows us, tracking each foot, each heel, each toe on the vinyl. Like dangerous beasts, we are watched. We are at odds with what they would like to see. Steeped in cowardice, we fear abandonment. We fear rejection. We fear. It is the language by which we communicate. The divergence of dialect creates a timid space between us. Slowly, our fingers wreathe around the rolls of masking tape by the stage lights, flaying the plastic skin strip by strip. In the quiet way, dust collects. The glass shards lie, sprinkled down stage before our knees. One by one, we rearrange them from 1,000 to a whole once more, despite the handful of fragments that have shattered too small to gather again. This plastic skin, I think, as my fingertips smooth out the little bubbles in between tape and mirror. She must have been made by a dancer. I look at you, and you look at me, and together we take the flagon of molten gold strained from the earth and drain it in between the shards we have broken and hated and learned to piece back together again. Lovely, isn't it, you say? Gold dimpling your cheeks and lining your lashes. The flagon crashes to the floor behind us, the boom draining out in a lilting sigh. Together, you and I, we fit our bodies into tandem and rise to our feet. The mirror unveiling the most beautiful tapestries of ourselves, laced with gold. So, in the end, make up a story for our sake and yours. Forget your name in the street. Tell us what the world has been to you in the dark places and in the light. Don't tell us what to believe, what to fear. Show us belief's wide skirt and the stitch that unravels fear's call. Because nobody else, I tell you, nobody else will have the same story to tell.